What do you do when you're 19 years old, living inside the most powerful house on earth, and someone calls you past midnight to talk about eternity? Most teenagers spend their first year of college worrying about exams, roommates, maybe a relationship. But Barron Trump isn't living a normal college life. He's the son of a sitting president, tucked inside the White House instead of a dorm, surrounded by constant security, pressure, and the expectations of two parents who became symbols long before he could vote. And according to one pastor, something unusual may be happening behind those walls. A TikTok famous preacher says he had a 12:30 a.m. phone call with Barron. Not about politics, not about school, but about faith. He claims he threw everything but the kitchen sink at the president's youngest son. Arguments for God, stories from overseas, dramatic accounts of people changing beliefs because of dreams. And when the call ended, this pastor walked away convinced of one thing: Barron might be closer to embracing Christianity than anyone realizes. But here's the twist: there's no official confirmation, no public statement from the White House, no press release from Barron himself. Just a late-night conversation that one man insists could become huge. So why would a 19-year-old, raised by a non-denominational father, a Catholic mother, constantly surrounded by expectation and opinion, suddenly entertain big spiritual questions? Why now? Why in private? And why in the middle of the night? Some say curiosity, some say pressure. Others whisper about rumors involving near-death moments, divine intervention, and the idea that eternity might matter more than politics. Whatever the truth is, one thing is undeniable. When a first son starts searching for meaning, the world pays attention. And this story is just getting started. Most people think influence comes from money, power, or fame. But sometimes influence hides in quieter places, inside late-night conversations, private questions, and the kind of curiosity no headline can explain. And that's why so many people are suddenly watching Barron Trump. Not because of politics, not because of his last name, but because a 19-year-old college kid might be wrestling with something deeper than policy or press coverage: identity, belief, and eternity. What makes this moment unusual isn't that Barron is religious or non-religious. The truth is, nobody really knows. He's stayed quiet. He's stayed private. And when you grow up with cameras parked outside your door, silence becomes a survival skill. But now a story is circulating. A story from a pastor who claims he got on the phone with Barron at 12:30 in the morning to talk about God, evidence, and the possibility that faith could matter more than politics. According to this pastor, Barron didn't shut it down. He listened. He questioned. And one detail, a story about people converting because of dreams, supposedly caught his attention in a way nothing else did. That's where the speculation kicked in. The pastor walked away believing Barron might be close to embracing Christianity. But there's no confirmation from Barron, no reaction from Melania, no comment from Donald. Just one man's impression after a late-night call. And that raises a bigger question. Why would Barron even entertain that conversation right now? Glass Barron Trump never had the luxury of anonymity. From childhood, he stepped into rooms where strangers already had opinions about his future. Reporters commented on his height, his silence, his expressions, even his clothing. Every photo became content. Every gesture became theory. When other kids were worrying about soccer tryouts, Barron was learning what it meant to survive attention. Then came the presidency. Twice, 2 campaigns, 2 inaugurations, 2 rounds of headlines about a teenager who rarely spoke but always appeared in the background. For some viewers, that restraint made him mysterious. For others, it made him cold. But maybe it was something simpler: privacy. While most political families push children into photo ops, Barron did the opposite. He vanished. Months without public appearances, no viral interviews, no social media storms. And that silence built curiosity. Curiosity that now collides with religion. Because when someone that private entertains questions about belief, people want to know why. But Barron's life was shifting even before this pastor story surfaced. Barron started at NYU in Manhattan, a normal campus, a normal college environment, at least on paper. But that didn't last. Before his sophomore year, he switched to NYU's Washington, D.C. program, less than a mile from the White House. When most students move for sophomore year, they're looking for independence. Barron went the opposite direction, right back into the center of power. Reports suggest he's living in the private residential quarters instead of a student apartment. That means security teams, checkpoints, controlled movement, and a personal environment where every guest is logged. That kind of life forces distance. It narrows friendships. It limits expression. And for a 19-year-old searching for meaning, isolation creates space for introspection, especially late at night. So when a pastor says he got a 12:30 a.m. call, the timing matches a certain psychological reality. The middle of the night is when thoughts get loud. But there's another layer the public can't ignore. Barron didn't grow up in a household with one unified religious identity. Donald Trump was raised Presbyterian, later calling himself a non-denominational Christian. His religious statements have been sporadic, sometimes distant, sometimes bold, sometimes pointing to what he calls divine protection, especially after surviving the assassination attempt in 2024. Melania is Catholic, the first Catholic First Lady since Jackie Kennedy. She's described as private, traditional, reverent, and disciplined. Not public, not loud, not performative. So Barron's religious exposure wasn't loud sermons. It was a mix of quiet ritual, open-ended Christianity, and a father who speaks about heaven more openly as he gets older. For a teenager, that creates questions. What do I believe? Which parent do I follow? Do I pick a side? Do I wait? And when you're surrounded by political pressure, choosing a belief system becomes more than spiritual. It becomes symbolic. That may explain why rumors suggest Barron is thinking carefully before committing. But rumors are just rumors. What we do have are clues. The biggest one came from a pastor who wanted to prove something. Pastor Stuart Knechtel presents himself as a debate-driven evangelist. TikTok clips, campus conversations, evidence-based arguments. On The George Janko Show, he described the call like he was going into a championship match. He said he unloaded scientific reasoning, historical claims, testimonial evidence, everything short of supernatural theatrics. But by his own admission, it didn't land. Barron didn't melt. He didn't crumble. He didn't suddenly convert. The pastor claims he came up empty-handed until he shifted tactics and mentioned stories from Africa about Muslims having dreams that point them toward Christianity. According to him, that, and only that, sparked interest. But again, interest is not conversion. It's curiosity. It's a question mark. It's the beginning, not the end. And that is exactly why this story spread. Because curiosity is more dramatic than certainty. But curiosity also connects to something else brewing in the Trump orbit. If you want more stories that dig beneath the headlines and reveal what's really unfolding behind the scenes, make sure you hit subscribe, tap like, and turn on notifications. There's a lot more coming, and you won't want to miss what happens next.